It's the biggest night in the 10-year history of OTB as 12 storied franchises from across the nation take their first step towards a championship in 2021. Grab those pizza rolls, settle in, welcome to the OTB Draft Night pre-show. And here we are, and welcome to a live kickoff show less than 45 minutes away from what, forgive me for saying, is the biggest night of the fantasy season, the biggest night in the history of OTB in these 10 seasons. Maybe it's the biggest night of the year. I don't know. There's not enough hype I can throw at you. I'm going to try to throw enough hype at you over the next 45 minutes. We've got a lot to unpack. We're going to talk a little bit about the offseason. We're going to talk about projected players. We'll talk the draft board. We'll talk about the draft pick trades that have recently went down, might still be going down. We don't know, but we'll bring you all the way to the beginning of draft night, to the beginning of us saying Gronk TDs is on the clock, and so we go from there. But before I go any further, I have to welcome in the one, the only, the guy that's been with me for 10 years since this fantasy league was an idea on a commute to, I don't know, Orlando and LA somewhere. It is the league nemesis. It is Sanchez and Butthead. Garcia, how are you doing tonight? It's a big night. How you feeling?
Dave, I'm feeling as good as I did yesterday, and I'm feeling even better than I felt 3 days ago or 2 days ago. I don't even know what day of the week it is. I have not stopped mock drafting. I haven't slept in about a week and a half, and it has something to do with just mocking and other things in life. But, I've told people repeatedly now, this is really the day that I look forward to the most during the year. Past birthdays, past, Christmas, Thanksgiving, opening day, the first Thursday of the season. So it truly is what makes the year go round and round.
Indeed it does. And for everybody else that is watching, obviously, now and into draft night, don't forget that we want you to join in the conversation. If you want, first of all, just to enjoy the night, talk amongst yourselves, but if you want to try to also have something to say for the show, I had mentioned this in one of the emails, do it in YouTube and not in the draft client, because I'm probably less apt to see it in the draft client. Based on my history, I'm less apt to see it, period. But if you put it in YouTube, there's a chance I will be able to throw it up on the screen. So please feel free to join in the conversation. Before we go any further, it is probably important for us to set the stage one step at a time. It's been a rollicking offseason, and we want to tell you a little bit about where we've been to this point. So I want to put an offseason graphic out on the screen because it has indeed been a whirlwind. So let's start with this. There was a record number of league owners this year that submitted items to our spring ballot. Even though that was the case, we also had a record number in the low end of items that got passed. Only one item passed this year. But, in the fact that it happens, I feel like we glossed over the fact that it was kind of a big item. OTB benches have decreased from 6 to 5. There is still that one IR spot. But the 5 bench spots now, just think about that with the size of our lineups. Think about that with, carrying 2 quarterbacks if you've got a couple players hurt or on bye. All of a sudden, something that we probably didn't think much about in the spring is a big deal. It's a big deal and something we should talk about more tonight. We also reseeded the divisions for the first time. I think this was probably Garcia's favorite event of the year for the first time ever. We're going to get to that in a second. We have different divisions, and from that, we kind of leaned into that with a record prize pool highlighted by division wars. So we're going to get into more of that later too. But remember that in addition to all the money that's up for grabs during the season, 6 people are going to walk away with half of their league fee back at the end of the year if their division has aggregately, cumulatively, scored more points than the other division. So really an opportunity to maybe build some community rivalry here. Garcia, of all these things, what stood out to you the most in this wild offseason?
The fact that certain rules weren't accepted. And that's really what didn't happen as opposed to what did happen really kind of stood out the most. But I'm thrilled to see what's going to develop in the rivalries of these 2 divisions. League A, the best of the best, the top dog league. You're included, Ian, Carl, the heavy hitters. And then, of course, there's Gronk, who kind of has really not done much. But it could all start tonight for Gronk to kind of join the forces, the rebellion, or whatever else you guys like to call yourself. Murderers Row. That's the one that I like the most.
All right.
Versus this Sandlot league, a league that doesn't probably even deserve to be in the same room with you guys. So I'm curious to see what animosity, what tension builds between these 12 teams and how this is all going to work. And again, a lot of pressures on guys like you, because you don't want to be the one. It's kind of like a relay race, right? The batons pass and then you're on the last leg, and here you are picking up what is going to be a coast, and all of a sudden you're 48, you're 39 weekly point performance pulls everybody back. Whereas Ship, myself, I don't even know who's in my league. I guess I should look up to see who else is on my team here.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. And I want to just, again, I got a lot of things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the bench spaces, but because you brought up the divisional realignment, I'm going to put it up on the screen. Because here's the thing. I am going to try to convince you that this Murderers Row comment that you suggest, that was stated out of context, out of order, is something that should follow us all season. But here is divisional realignment on the screen. Junipero and Callister. They were Black Mirror references, by the way, for those that wondered what the heck these names mean. So, 2 good episodes of Black Mirror. If you want to get into it, I suggest starting with either of those 2. Anyway, what you can't see on the screen right now, Garcia, is that there are 6 teams, obviously, in each division. Greatest show on paper, sidebar, all aboard the baby bus, Sweet Home Chicago, Waverman and Gronk TDs in Junipero, Phil the Thrill, yourself, Cincinnati, Ship, wristbands, and regulators in the other. I have highlighted that, in fact, there are many different ways you can split this up. One way is to say that there is exactly 4 championships, one in this league on either side. There's 3 title winners in each division, and 2 of those people have won 2. They're also separated. So there are actually a perfect split of 4 and 4. Whatever way you want to slice this, it could not be more even. Does that convince you at all?
No, because again, I believe it was you and Ian who called yourself the Murderers Row. Like, you guys started touting yourself as the best league in the division, or whatever it is. I don't even know. What do we call ourselves? Divisions? What the hell is it?
It's divisions.
Anyway,
sometimes I say conferences, but they're divisions.
Pressure because to build to, and you could put all the data here. You could put all the stats. You guys called yourself the best of the best, and you may be. I mean, when I look at this, while it's impressive the color coordination that you've done. Again, Cincinnati hasn't won in I don't know, the 90s. PTT.
In the Super Bowl
that's what we're hoping for.
In the Super Bowl last year.
Mean, you put me in the same division with wristbands. I mean, if that's not an insult, I don't know what is.
I'll say this, and here's another thing. I brought it up on the broadcast for the realignment. You could ask Sweet Home Chicago. Kudos to him who did it incredibly. In all these different ways to split it up. It's amazing to me that literally everybody's rival is in the other division. So even though we're going to play the rivals twice a year, it's amazing to me that he was able to split up every single team. And that also allowed us to have some fun with the schedule this year, because remember, the first 5 weeks of the season's all out of conference play, out of division play, and then it's almost all exclusively divisional play from here on out. So no matter how you slice this thing, I mean, I personally think it's very interesting. I think they're very even. I can't wait to see what happens late in the year if, let's say, a team maybe forgets to start an active player, maybe they have a bad decision, maybe a bad quarterback stream. Well, the other 5 teams looking for half their league feedback, will they get on that league member? Those are the types of storylines that I would love to personally play up as commissioner. I don't know about you.
I mean, this is probably breaking news for you, but Mouse Mansion is no longer in our league. So whoever has an inactive clearly isn't paying attention to what happened to Mouse Mansion. Because if you place an inactive, you're going to be kicked out of the league. It's no gimmies, no mulligans. You're one and done in your world when it comes to inactive. So I hope for your division that people remember to put inactives. I have a feeling you're going to create a little group message to remind guys to play them, even if they're hurt. To where you have a choice between, I don't know, a guy that's on the bench and a guy who's on the waiver wire. You may just go in as a commission, grab the waiver wire guy, and just throw him in just to avoid that inactive. That's the way you work. So no surprise there. But listen, man. The college schedule that you that's another one that amazes me. Kudos to you. I don't even know the other rules. I don't think there's anything worthwhile talking about on this realignment, and this is really going to talk of the town. And this, I think, should stay for forever. It shouldn't be messed with because I think it really just creates even better conversation. And the champion leagues is what you guys are.
Well, it's a fair point. Actually, I really loved it. I mean, I'm not trying to lean on anything because we're going to vote it. No, we're going to vote it next year. I liked this divisional realignment, not necessarily to keep the same divisions. I kind of liked that as another off-season event to reshuffle divisions every year. We got so much to jump to. I want to talk about the AP or the NFL ADP top 12 players because we want to get into draft night. Lastly, though, before 2 minutes or less, do you think, based on the fact that we will have one less bench spot, do you think that influences any draft decisions tonight? And by that I mean almost exclusively 9 or 10 teams every year usually carry 2 quarterbacks to start the season. Do you think we'll see less of that? Or do you think that it'll be kind of status quo and just one less skill player? You have any prediction there?
Well, I predict that Devin Singletary won't be on a roster for any of the teams.
That's a fair.
I mean, I still think guys are going to go with what they're accustomed to, and they'll find a way. I think there's certain people in our league that love to have 2 quarterbacks. There's some people that don't want any quarterbacks. That might be a challenge when it comes to putting out a full roster, but I guess we'll see. I don't think it's going to have that huge of a difference. I think if anything, it helps keep some of the scrubs off that should never be on any of our rosters when it's all said and done.
It's possible, and it's possible.
Now, I will laugh if somebody collects 3 quarterbacks. Oh. That's what I'm waiting for.
Or 4 tight ends, which I know is a strategy of yours going into tonight.
Well, I mean, listen, tight ends are just like wide receivers. If you could put them in a flex position, then I guess it's all good.
All right.
Who came up with that rule?
All right, I want to get to our draft board and all of the things that happened. But before I do, I want to pull this up because this is important because this is what owners will see when they jump in to the NFL Draft client, which, by the way, in about 15 minutes, we all want you to be doing. But let me pull up this graphic, Garcia. I shared it with you earlier, but I'm going to repeat it for you since you can't see it. This is the projected top 12 players based on NFL ADP. And what I mean by that is when you go into the draft client tonight on your app or the website, these are the top 12 players that we will see. You will notice, of course, that there are predominantly running backs here. McCaffrey, Cook, Henry, Kamara. I don't think a lot of people are arguing necessarily with that top 4. Travis Kelce at 5 on the draft client. Austin Eckler, which has been surging in some expert pools. Ezekiel Elliott, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley. We don't hit a receiver until 11. It's Devontae Adams. And Stephon Diggs at 12. Now, again, I don't know that this is necessarily gospel. And actually, my first question to you, Garcia, is do you think in our first 12 picks we're going to see a lot of chalk? We're going to see a lot of these guys go? Do you expect surprises? I mean, tell me where you are in the top 12 player conversation.
Knowing some of our owners, I think there's quite a few wild cards and how they're going to lean to and what they're going with. In terms of what NFL Fantasy is saying here, I think Kelce is actually listed too low. I put Kelce certainly above Adams and Tay Diggs, aka Stephon Diggs, when it's all said and done. So I think he's at least a top 4, could be even a top 3, and that's the much love that I have for Mr. Kelce. So I think on that offense, the O-line is improved. Tyreek Hill's going to get your 75-yard bomb, but who's going to get the most catches, the most receptions, the most looks? It's going to be Travis Kelce. I don't think the running game is going to be as formidable as everyone thinks it will be. So Kelce, I think, should at least be in the top 5. So I don't think they're completely off there. Eckler, to me, is a little – I can't recall the last time Eckler's had a healthy season. So I think he's a little bit too high, in my opinion. And then, Kamara's a wild card because – there's no Drew Brees behind center. And, I know Jameis Winston won the job, but quarterback. So I don't know what I expect out of that.
Yep. Lost him for a second.
Like a 5th rounder, so he's not even fully healthy.
Gotcha. Sorry, I lost you for a second. So I was gonna find my way to cut in as I so often do. When you speak anyway, I find my way to cut in. I tend to think that the first few picks will go as we expect. You never know. I tend to think that we'll see some chalkiness. I think based on...
you can't say that Kelce going first is a bad idea.
Well, I mean, maybe it depends on who's there in terms of who's drafting and how much they like Travis Kelce. That is an important part of this. I will say this. I will hold some...
I love Travis Kelce.
Well, I'll say this. I'm going to hold some of my opinions for certain players until after they're picked because I usually get jumped on for No, nobody listens to me. So the irony of the fact that people jump on me for this is quite funny. But I'm not going to necessarily like lean on certain players. I will say that I've got all 180 ranked, and I will tell you when things are interesting to me based on where I have them ranked. Because, well, judging by 2019, maybe that would be good information. Judging by 2020, you're probably going to be like, I really don't care where any of your players happen to be ranked. But I do tend to think, anyway, that it will be a running back centric or early draft. I mean, it makes sense. It's a scarce position. We have 5 positions on the lineup card that they could be filled by. And even if you want to be a receiver-centric team, if you want a running back that you could depend on at all, you kind of have to get them in the first few rounds, probably, unless you feel very lucky. And you're going to hear me say this a lot, and you're going to be annoyed at all the philosophical gems I'll throw at you at some point tonight. But I think good fantasy players draft for what they know, and great fantasy players draft for what they don't know. And what I mean by that is nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can predict the future. And so don't fall in love with certain guys and move on to other positions. My opinion always is expect to be wrong, especially as you get later into the draft, and plan for that. Plan some contingency in to your draft board. I don't think a lot of people do that. They draft a position, they move right on. That's my thought anyway. But I do think it'll be interesting to see who goes where based on these rankings, I think.
Can I ask a more important question?
You can.
You're not with Disney anymore. Why are you wearing Disney paraphernalia?
I want to be comfortable. I want to be comfortable, and I've gotten a few. Excuse me, we're live here. I want to be comfortable, and I haven't gotten any comfortable swag from the new job, so this is going to have to be sufficient. It's not necessarily the branding like we got from Twisted Treat today, but it is unfortunately some non-purchased branding. Let's move, because we've got so much more to go, and let's talk about the draft board, because I think one of the things, you can see it on, it's on my left. It's on your left, too, I think. Anyway, you'll see it on the side of the screen that it's on. And there have been a lot of movement in the last couple days. I don't know, Garcia, if you want to start by talking about Waverman and All Aboard the Baby Bus. In fact, I'll highlight them here. Obviously, they swapped entire draft boards. So what you see on the board right now is what you'll see again on the snake. That'll be in reverse, and it will continue for 15 rounds. Your thoughts on the first of 2 massive trades, the first that we've ever seen. Your thoughts on the full positional swap between Waverman and All Aboard the Baby Bus.
Yeah, I mean, I love it just because of the fact that it made more work for you. So I give them kudos to putting that together. They definitely get an A for creativity and thinking outside the box and not being boring and making everyone kind of scratch their head saying, what did these guys do, to see if they kind of slip the fast one passes. But I'm just curious to know, what Frankie's thinking, because he had himself at least a top 5 running back to choose from. And it sounded like he didn't like to wait in that second round. So then he falls back and gets 10, and then would be, I think, 16 or something, 15 on the second round. I have my opinion of what he's going to do in that second round. I think this trade had more to do with his second round pick, obviously, than his first round. I think he doesn't really care who he selects first round. I have a hunch. I've got a strong feeling who he's going with the second round, and I do know it's not going to be Minshaw, who was just traded to the Eagles. But I'm kind of leaning towards that particular area of position, if you know what I mean.
I do, and there was a question from the YouTube audience about the sunglasses today. So I mean, you're styling right now. You're getting a lot of style points on YouTube for those sunglasses. I don't know if you want to comment.
Yeah, it's blocking the sunshine that's coming through the screen here. That you being the sunshine, but
of course.
It's just, again, a lot of mocking and very little sleep. And this is like poker to me. I don't want anyone to see my eyes and what I'm doing, who I'm looking at. So obviously the reflection that's coming off the sunglasses probably gives more than what my eyes tell you.
Sure.
But this is the 10th anniversary, so I might as well go with some shades until it gets too dark, and then it's kind of offsets everything.
It's looking, now is your opportunity to highlight the other massive trade on draft eve between you and our defending champion, Greatest Show on Paper. Now, this one's a little more nuanced because you only traded first and second round picks, right? So you guys are basically swapping positions in the first and second round, but then it will be back to the way it was on draft lottery night for the rest of the draft for rounds 3 through 15. Greatest Show on Paper will be on that anchor. You will be on the 9 spot, and then conversely, the 14, I think, it's tough for me, to 16, 15, whatever you'll be on the other side of it. Well, I mean, I don't have. You don't have to pontificate here. It's you. So, what were you thinking making this trade?
Well, it was one of those things where there's a certain player that I think my gut tells me one half of the greatest show on paper truly, truly loves. And I kind of feel that he was not telling me the entire truth about him. And I felt in order for him to really kind of go with the homegrown talent that he loves, I should give him that opportunity to select him. But at the end of the day, it also, I wasn't really in love where I was at. Even though I selected ninth myself and wasn't just forced it just kind of got to the point where the first round and then the second round, the way that the gap there, I just didn't like the way things were falling into place. I have a position and strategic approach to this on how I want to go about it. And I felt in order to really complete that and execute it to perfection, it would be to go 12 and 13 as opposed to waiting. Just because, there's guys like Shipwreck who are very savvy. They somehow pluck guys that you have on your mind, and they have that ability to grab them. And of course, I'm not really worried about Frankie because I know who he's going with in that second round. A certain guy that loves the color red and a little bit of gold. But at the end of the day, it made my life easier to go all the way till the end and then start the new round, and then I could take a long break so I can kind of catch a breath. But it's kind of nice to see things fall. I could be completely wrong with my strategy here, which could really, really screw things up. With that said, I'm still open for business. I mean, this is a guy who's open for business. My phone is right here. You can text me. You can message me. Whatever you work, WhatsApp me. I don't do the Twitter thing, but I'm open for business. I'm willing to make a deal. I can wait until my pick, and be happy to make a deal up until then, just to add to the show and to make your life even more challenging when it comes to the selection process.
Oh, sure. And the question I think has to be, was it ever discussed that you guys would swap full drafts a la Waverman and all aboard the baby bus, or was it always exclusively the first two rounds?
This is the first time I've really actually done anything with, and I can only say I've done one half of it with Greatest Show on Paper. As we know, they're a two-headed monster, and I think because of the fact that I had an ongoing conversation even last year about some trade discussions, some that positioned to one part of Greatest Show on Paper, and then he of course sent me some that I didn't have any of those players on my team, so I'm not sure really what he was paying attention to, but it had mostly to do with the fact that we didn't want to get a little bit over ourselves. I think he was kind of going through the process that he always had to get approval from a second body. And I think I was more of just like, you can make a decision for yourself. You don't need to call somebody or text somebody and say, hey, I'd like to do this. I really hope there's a day and time where maybe somebody bows out of the league and that other half, or Rick, goes on his own, or Andre goes on his own. They own a team on their own. I'd be interested to see how that works. I mean, I'm curious to know who gets all the credit for the two championships. I think I know. I'm not going to say on air, but I think the person I've been dealing with the most, I think that's the person who deserves most of the credit for those championships. I hope he actually has like a trophy of some sort.
There you go. Yeah,
two of those championships. 70-30 when it comes to the state.
I love it. A lot of things here, and some additional thoughts on this draft board. One is, and I mean this with all due respect to some of the folks that are sitting on the back half of the board, but the back half of the board, if I was going to sell ad space on what is going to attract ratings tonight, I would say that the back half of the board is a little more likely to do some things that will raise some eyebrows. And so I could see, again, because also it's really tough to argue with some of these early picks. I could see, the first few picks being somewhat, okay, yep, cool, great. And then we move into an area, and I'm not like necessarily naming names, Sidebar British Show, All Aboard the Baby Bus, Shipwreck, and you, that it does become a little more interesting based on maybe draft strategy. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, but I do think that there's a philosophy a lot of times in the first round that you draft for floor. That there's really not a bad choice, but there are safer choices. Don't lose your draft. Don't lose your league in your first round pick. But then I do think there's some other people that aspire to draft for ceiling in the first round, a more dangerous proposition to try to jump on guys that maybe have second round ADP value, but enjoy making sure that they're on their teams. And so I think to me, one of the more interesting things is well, A, am I wrong? Will the first 5 or 6 guys surprise me tonight with the picks? But if I'm not wrong, what does that back half of the board look like? And then also, what does the rest of it look like? We're 5 minutes away from taking a quick video interstitial. So, Garcia, any final thoughts before we still have a lot to cover? We're going to talk storylines. We are going to talk pressure. Who's got the most pressure on them? I'm going to tell you a little bit about draft process. We're also going to talk about who we expect to win it all. So we've got a lot to do in the last 15 minutes. But Garcia, now about 4 minutes or less, anything about this draft board that you are interested in or that you think could lead to some interesting situations? PTT out there still trying to make deals, perhaps. I mean, anything interesting there for you?
Interesting. It'd be great if there was like some trade right before the actual draft itself. I'd like to see some trades even have for the later rounds. I'd love to see some collaboration with teams, even just selecting a player and then, after the fact, swapping players and to that nature to really kind of create even more engagement. I just wonder what you're going to do. I think everyone wants to know, is it going to be Barkley?
Well, here's the question, because this is a legitimate question now. Let's talk quickly about this, because you gave me a few minutes, and so we'll dive into that. There are some interesting guys that have fallen due to injury concern, maybe due to some usage concerns. I mean, you sit there and you see a guy like Saquon or a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who at one point earlier in this offseason were at 3, 4, 5 land, maybe 5, 6 land, but somewhere in that range, starting to slide. I've seen them even in the early second round. So before I ask you another question, let me ask you that one. I'm not asking you opinions on specific players. I'm just asking, when you're looking at your particular draft board assessment, how much are you looking at things like those types of storylines and saying, hey, I can grab value now at the back end of the board? Or are you more apt to also see them kind of fly on by because you just don't trust what you're going to get? Notice how I turned the Saquon question back to you. Notice how I didn't answer anything about Saquon. I'm asking you about Saquon.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm not going to hide. I don't know what to expect from Barkley, and I don't know if there's value in a first-round guy who I think on average gets maybe 3 yards per carry. If he doesn't have a big play, then there's no value to it. So I think he's, a lot of reward, but at the same time, the risk is there. And it's an ACL, it's an MCL, it's a Giants offensive line that is just not very good or hasn't shown that it can be good. It's a quarterback that has a lot of pressure on him. That obviously this is the year that it's make or break. Everyone's getting excited about the wide receiver component, but I don't know. If you can't protect the quarterback, then how are you going to get the ball to the receivers? And then they're talking about Barkley may not play until week 3, and if he starts week 1, it may be just a rotating basis. Joe Judge, hasn't even allowed any of his players, the starters, just to really do much during the preseason. So too many question marks there for me when it comes to Barkley, which I think, knowing you fall under the same umbrella. That's just my thinking on it. But, if you take the 4th, 5th, 6th pick, and he blows everything up, then, hey, you're golden. You got yourself great value. For me, too many question marks. And he's a Giant too.
No, it's fair. It's fair. All right. Well, on the other side of this, we are going to talk a whole lot more, including draft process and including getting you loaded into that draft client. So we will be right back. We are less than 15 minutes away from the beginning of the most historic draft night we'll ever have. It's season 10. It's a big deal. It is now time, if you haven't already, I'm about to do it, to enter your draft room. Whether you're doing it on the app or the website, we want everybody in there now. We're going to talk about draft process in a few minutes. But the idea is that everybody's in the room before 7 o'clock. And we're actually, even though that first round's offline, we'll talk more about it in a few minutes. Even though that first round is offline, we are going to have you making picks. After I read it on air, you're going to be making the pick. I'm going to be pausing the draft again. So if you're not in yet, we ask for you to be in. Also, this draft board, if you haven't done any mocks on NFL yet this offseason, you will notice this draft board is very different. So give yourself 15 minutes to take a look at it. I could argue whether it's more or less confusing. So just make sure that you're familiar and you understand where these players are. You don't click on the wrong thing and draft Javonte Williams in the first round. We'd love it if you did, but I don't know that you'd love that. So give yourself a chance to jump in to that draft board. More on draft process in a second. Garcia, I'm going to pivot here and I'm going to start talking a little bit about OTB storylines going in to season 10. There's a lot for me to pick from. I tried to pick a few, but there are more that I could have probably talked about. So let's start with this. Shipwreck Waverman. Seeking legacy-defining crowns. Obviously, and I could go on for 20 minutes about this, two of the all-time winningest franchises, period. Not even just like franchises that have won and not won a title. No. Most winningest franchises in the history of OTB. They're still seeking that legacy-defining crown. Will they find it this year? How about Sweet Home Chicago, who has had, in my opinion, objectively, the best cumulative 2 drafts in the last 2 years? I mean, I don't think there's anybody that has gone out and had better drafts put together than Sweet Home Chicago has in 2019 and 2020. Is this the year that they push ahead and they find themselves back into a Super Bowl? Do they take home that 10th crown? Greatest show on paper, trying to buck recent trends that they also fell into in 2019. Sidebar fell into it in 2020 of having maybe, well, let's just say not so great seasons in their repeat opportunity. Can they get off the snide? Can they defend their crown? Can they stay competitive? And heck, could they do something we've never seen? 3 titles in 4 years. That would obviously be a record for multiple reasons. And then I highlight it one more time because I really do enjoy this. The divisional payouts means we're all in this together. It means that every single week, even if you're not winning, you might still be contributing to getting yourself some money back at the end of the year. Because at the end of the year, whichever division has the most cumulative points, they will be giving their owners back half their league fee. So, again, a lot of things we could talk about. Garcia, what do you want to talk about? Actually, let me steer you in this direction. Which squad do you think has the most pressure on them to win this year?
Oh, man. I think there's 2 teams that come to mind. You mentioned one earlier, Waverman, been sort of knocking on the door, not really a loud pounding, more kind of like one of those types of knocks, and he just seems like he always has not the full balanced squad. It's like he's got some great point totals, but unfortunately doesn't equate to wins. But let's face it. I mean, Ian, what he's done these last 2 years, literally had his foot almost across the goal line in 2019. Everyone predicted it was his last year. He stumbled when it mattered most. Maybe he's learned a lesson here and there, or maybe just luck finally goes his way. But those are the 2 teams that come to mind. I would be surprised. I don't know how it's going to work if you're in the same division, if you can actually meet in the actual championship round. But you know better than me because you set everything up. I'm just here for the show. So it's one of those things. Those 2 squads. And then I think, kind of just hanging out in the back there is Shipwreck. Is poor guy, man. Let's face it. He's had some opportunities, and last year didn't have a dynamic roster, but maybe he gets himself a real quarterback in this year's draft that kind of really gives him that lift and gives him that push and makes a run at the end. And you can't count out the greatest show on paper, although it's every other year type thing going on right now. They're the defending champions, and as long as they have that one particular person who's making decisions, you can't count them out.
I tend to agree with you. And when we know some of this is
that's weird. You didn't even listen to this. You didn't even know what I said.
I did listen.
You didn't even know what I said.
I did listen.
You were like your eyes are up here. That's why my eyes are covered right now. Nobody can see what I'm doing.
All right, here's what I will say. I was listening.
What is up there?
I was listening. I was looking because I've got two screens. I'm looking at a draft client that has some auto icons that not all of them scare me. One of them scares me. So if anyone's listening to this broadcast and would like to text wristbands and ask him, maybe he's been in the YouTube stream and I haven't seen it yet. I'm still seeing an auto next to his name. So if anybody wants to help the commissioner out with a lot to do right now, and give him a text and say, hey, man, you pulling up to that draft room soon? Because I've heard from PTT, even though I know obviously he's probably toggling between screens. I don't think I've heard from Gronk, so that's the other one. If anyone wants to text Gronk and also suggest about 8 minutes to go, we probably want to be in the room, you know?
Again, this is the most important day of the year.
I don't know. I agree with you. There's a lot going on. We got a lot of live events. And ultimately, for me, it's more just, I don't want to slow the rest of the league down if we have to apologize. You know, you guys probably sit there and say, oh my goodness, could you send me more emails? Well, with 8 minutes to go, this is why we send you a lot of emails. Because, you know, we said, like, hey, if you're going to have an issue, text us in advance, let us know. I just want to make sure that people are going to be here and that we don't have to pause the draft for 5, 10, 15 minutes, just in case. I'll actually use that as a segue. It wasn't the last thing I was going to do, but it will now be the first thing I do. To talk a little bit about draft process. 10 minutes ago seems like the right time. So by now, as I have lamented for the last 2 minutes, you should be in the NFL Fantasy Draft app or website, whatever you're using, totally fine. But yes, I'm sorry. It's the most important of the day of the year so far. My wife has asked, "Is this the most important of the day of your day of your whole year?" And of course not. It of course is the most important day thus far. She's obviously referring to like Week 10 or the Super Bowl or something like that. Anyway, so being in the draft client right now, in round one, what's going to happen in a few minutes is I'm going to pause the draft. So obviously, if people are running late, it's not the end of the world. Because we are going to pause the draft, and we got a little bit of, obviously a little intro and some fanfare. And then we're going to jump into the draft. When you are on the clock, you are going to text me your pick. Notice that the draft client will be paused. You can't do anything. You're going to text me your pick. Once you see that I have announced the pick on YouTube, what you will then see is I've opened the draft room for you to enter your pick. I will then pause, and we will continue until the 12th pick. At the 12th pick, we will then fully migrate online. Now, we will stay on this YouTube stream. We'll be taking some breaks to focus on our own drafts, too. But if you are able to keep YouTube on all night, please do. We will talk about what we're seeing. We'll talk about players. We'll rate some drafts towards the end of the night. We'll talk about, anything that strikes our fancy and probably give each other and other league members a hard time, as well as continuing to elevate your comments. Again, please join the conversation on YouTube. We enjoy all of what you're saying. Again, all rounds from round 2 on are online, so if worst case scenario, you can only keep a screen up, and it has to be the NFL Draft app, obviously. Totally fine. We will be going 2 minutes per pick from here on out. Commissioner reserves the right to speed it up if it's really slow, but usually 2 minutes per pick isn't terrible, and we should have a much better, easier, cleaner draft this year since we're only doing that first round in that kind of slower offline format. And so with that, we're going to start moving into really the final conversation topic of the evening before we jump in to an exciting draft night. Garcia. I mean, I will ask you this question. You can frame it back to me however you'd like. You can tell me teams you like. You can tell me playoff teams. But ultimately, even if you give me a few teams, I want you to pick one. Pick the winner this year. Pick the team. This is your prediction. This video will be locked, memorialized, mummified, etc. Pick the team that you think is winning it all in 2021.
I'm putting all my money in Sweet Home Chicago. This is his year. Third time's the charm.
I love it. You can talk a little more because I'm going through YouTube integration right now.
No, really, I have nothing else to say. Well, you know what? It's a toss-up. Well, there's a 1A and a 1B. It's Sweet Home Chicago, and I've got to think you have learned your lesson, and you're going to find a way again to at least have that second championship before I even sniff the second championship. So last year was an abomination. And in so many words, it was very troubling what you went through. One has to wonder if you've lost your magic touch. Clearly, the 40-something point totals you had week in, week out, you were allowed to stay in the contest. You were somehow still in that race, thanks to some other teams that seemed like they handed you a platter of goodness in terms of the trades they made with you. But I got to think you're going to reverse course. We can't have 2 years of this, because if we do, one has to wonder are you really committed to this anymore? Have you lost a step? Are you overanalyzing things? Are you taking too much time with all those books behind you and getting to the point of where, you're trying to outsmart even yourself? We know you're the smartest man in the room. We know you're the best of the best. So all eyes are on you. My money is on Ian, but all eyes are on you. So two of the teams out of the A division, the cream of the crop, the best of the best. The B division has no chance. I'm just putting it out there. I feel sorry for guys like Shipwreck, Wristbands. Well, it doesn't matter. PTT may give a valiant effort. I clearly stink.
I'll say this.
I'm doing half the time. And then Cincinnati, I think he just had a baby, so I don't think he has time for us. So, he might have his kid making selections tonight. So, but Waverman's right there.
Yeah, no. Here's what I love. I love a couple things. I've been laughing a little bit because I had a chance. WB is still not in yet, and I'm looking at who 5 overall is for an auto pick, and it's entertaining me. We shall say. If you don't know, you will see when you go into the draft room.
Well, listen. If you love Travis Kelce, you might as well auto draft.
I mean, who wouldn't want Travis Kelce? And I think Travis Kelce might be gone before then. But if he's not, he will be a wonderful 5th.
If Travis Kelce is not there at 5, then whoever took him, kudos. Great move. Great, go out and get the guy you want.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so obviously 3 minutes to go, and you of course want to know who's your pick, and he's going to hate me for saying this. So I'm gonna leverage the data here, and I'm going to tell you that in the past, and this is an opportunity for me to plug myself too. In the past 5 years in OTB, there's only been 2 teams that have been to at least 3 Final Fours and 2 championships. One of them is me, of course, because I was going to find a way to plug myself. The other is, of course, Shipwreck. Shipwreck has double the amount of regular season points titles than anybody else. And if you want to talk about, I wasn't in the league yet, Shipwreck has the most average wins per year than anyone else. At some point, even though there is just luck involved in the playoffs, you get there so many times, the odds are you are going to accidentally stumble in to a championship, as you yourself, Garcia, did in 2013, before we were recording anything on paper. Before there was rock and chisel, you were winning an OTB fantasy title that nobody was particularly aware of. So, I know he's going to hate me for doing this, but if you're asking me my honest opinion, it's Shipwreck. It is 100% Shipwreck. I think Waverman's going to be great. I think Sweet Home Chicago is going to be great. I think Greatest Show on Paper will not have their 2019 season. I think they will find a way to be better than they were in 2019. But it's 100% Shipwreck, and that's where I'm going, and that's my pick. 1 minute to go. Garcia, final thoughts before we jump into draft night.
Really, Dalvin Cook being the number 1 pick overall is, I think, the smartest decision Gronk can make.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and actually, give me another minute here because I meant to ask you a question. We're going to talk about it on the other side of the break when he's on the clock. Christian McCaffrey, first overall in everybody's board. Can you give me an argument that he shouldn't be? Can you give me an argument that you wouldn't go 1 overall for Christian McCaffrey?
I'll give you a name, Sam Arnold. That's why you don't want C-Mac on your team. I don't know. Again, we're talking about some glass here, Christian McCaffrey. So, the wear and tear, unless that man's bulking up like you are, I don't know if he's going to be able to withstand another season. There's just too many question marks there. Not really sure if that offensive line even makes the top 5 of offensive lines. They're going to be good, but yeah, he's got some great weapons in Sam Arnold with Robbie Anderson, and I don't know who else is on that team, quite frankly. So I don't know. With Sam Arnold as your quarterback, I don't know. I guess you go Christian McCaffrey, but if you really want to play it safe, Dalvin Cook's your number 1 pick overall.
Oh, interesting.
You know why?
Yes.
Because that O-line is strong enough. Kirk Cousins is a decent quarterback, a veteran. Irv Smith is a up-and-coming tight end. I think there's that Jefferson kid as the wide receiver, Adam Thielen. Those guys are going to put up some huge points. Dalvin Cook is going to be the spark of that offense. Need to stop tripping.
I love it. I love it. And also, I have now, by the way, thank you, Garcia, I have paused the draft client. You will see. There's 1 minute and 54 seconds left in Gronk's clock. If you need the last 6 seconds, which is not true because you're going to get 3 minutes on the other side of this break. Remember, the draft is now paused. We will not be making picks yet. You will be texting me your pick. On the other side of this break, Grunk TDs, if you are out there, you will be on the clock. 3 minutes per pick. You will text. But for now, we will see you in a few minutes. But for now, we welcome you to what we know will be an exciting draft night. 10 years, the 10th overall draft. We can't be more excited, boys. So we hope you have some fun tonight. And again, welcome to Season 10 Draft Night. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your OTB Commissioner. Hello and welcome everyone to the 10th season of OTB. You know, there's something special about these types of milestone anniversaries in that it gives us a chance to look back and reflect on how far we've come. To the original 6 that were with us from day one, thank you for your part in building this league from where it started, drafting in one room at 129 Longview, to where we are today. 12 franchises, 13 owners, spanning half a dozen states and 3 time zones. And to those that have joined us over the past decade, it is because of you that we have been able to keep this league as exciting, innovative, collegial, and competitive, taking it to new heights with each passing year. This is it. Who knows, a championship may be decided in this draft room tonight. And with that, it gives me great pleasure to tell you the 2021 OTB Season 10 draft has officially begun. Gronk TDs, you are now on the clock. Man, what a nice guy that commissioner is. Being able to drop in and chat with you. Thank you, commish. And now we are back. And you know what? As he said, Gronk TDs, you are on the clock. So Garcia, here we go. Round one, offline. This is what we do. They'll text the commish their pick, and I will read it out. Now, you had your chance to pontificate about C-Mac. Here's what I will do. Because, of course, he is first overall on most everybody's boards. And by most everybody, I mean everybody. If anyone has seen C-Mac not in an aggregate expert one overall board, please show me the screenshot. Because I will say this. There is some weird science at work here in that when you are like 97% sure of something, you are almost always right. 97%, 100%. When you are 100% sure of something, you are 100% wrong. For some reason, the science does say that consensus picks are wrong at an alarming rate. And so what I wonder, Garcia, is does that get in Gronk's head at all? There has been a history here. I don't think since Todd Gurley was a projected first overall pick a few years ago and lived up to that, has the first overall aggregate consensus pick ever lived up to it, even been in the top 10 at the end of the year. Does that get in your head and you say, you know what, even if I love C-Mac, the data says that something is going to happen here, regression, injury, whatever, I go somewhere else with the first overall pick. Any of that running through your head?
No, because I'm not making the pick. But I guess if I was in his shoes, I would be leaning towards Dalvin Cook.
I mean,
I just don't trust the Carolina Panthers. You know, whether it's Kevin Arnold, Sam Arnold, whatever that guy's name is, it's just there's too many issues back there.
I tell you, I'm not going to tell you where I have C-Mac. I'll tell you when he goes. But I would personally also feel that way if I was first overall right now. Part of the reason I didn't want to be in the top half of the board is every pick seems like a sure thing. And then you look back on it in week 6 or 7 and say, wow, I wish I had gotten an XYZ player that ended up going in like that 5 to 8 area. And so I can't give you like an intellectual reason not to pick C-Mac because like there's no reason not to. What I can tell you is that sadly, the data says he will not live up to the pick. It's kind of like when you talk about NFL playoff predictions for the year ahead. Every year, there's a 50% turn rate. And yet every single year, we see the same like 10 teams predicted to make it that made it the year before. You would have a better chance of being right by throwing a dart at 5 or 6 other teams that weren't in last year. It's tough for our brains to get there, though. We see C-Mac and we say, well, he must be the overall, first overall pick, etc. But, with all that said, the pick is in here. And so we're going to go to the commissioner, a.k.a. me. No dual camera tonight. No podium. Sorry, podium's downstairs. It's not going to be with you tonight. But with the first overall pick in the 2021 OTB Draft, Gronk TDs has selected running back Christian McCaffrey, first overall. So it's nothing super surprising. It's what we thought. Gronk TDs, I'm about to unpause the draft. You're 30 seconds behind me, but you have plenty of time. When I hit resume, please do me a favor and go on in there and make that selection. And also, while you're doing that, nobody else, please, obviously, make their pick. We're going to switch gears. PTT now on the clock. But Garcia, while that's happening, any thoughts on that? Not exactly surprising.
I mean, he played it safe, not surprised. I would have given more kudos if you went Dalvin Cook. I do think Dalvin's going to have a better year. Christian McCaffrey's probably going to have maybe a handful, a few more points here and there. But Dalvin's going to be the guy that everyone's going to look at and say, man, I wish I had him. So who's number 2? PTT. He's got the opportunity to grab who I think is going to be your MVP of fantasy football season.
Yeah, I said I was going to say it to you, and I'm looking at my rankings, and yeah, C-Mac was my RB1. I'm not lying. I'm not trying to lie to you here. I mean, yes, I had him high. That said, would I actually have taken him? I don't know. I really don't, and you know me because I will tell you I'm not living off these rankings tonight necessarily. Like there are players that are probably going to be ranked higher that I don't pick. I don't know if I would have went C-Mac. I can't argue against it. I cannot argue against Christian McCaffrey 1 overall. It's just like this macro data that says you're going to be wrong. But it's not a bad pick. Again, I think he's a little behind, but if you haven't heard yet, Gronk, if you could do me a favor and select it. We're about 40 seconds away here before the clock will auto-pick. The good news is the auto-pick.
Now, I got a question. What's the official pick? The one he submitted to you or the one he puts actually in the app?
The good news is with the auto-pick, it is Christian McCaffrey, so I'm actually going to let this play. Just probably watch the auto-pick.
He's safe there.
But I think the auto pick is going to work here, and is going to it's going to auto pick him. PTT on the clock here, Garcia. Here's a guy who wanted to move out of this pick, didn't end up doing it, so he's sitting at 2 overall. Where do you think he's going on the board?
I mean, he still has time to make a trade, right? He's got like a minute and a half.
Maybe he's working on it right now. How do we know? You know.
Hang on, I got to.
Oh, what? Oh, there may be something happening right now. I don't know, but Garcia is distracted, so we will find out. There's about a minute left on his clock here, but again, we're going to be a little bit flexible. Don't be upset. We're going to be a little flexible on this draft clock because we are 30 seconds ahead of what you're seeing.
All right, so who do you like with this pick?
Who do I like with this pick?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, so I haven't had the chance yet to my board's all messed up here. So let me X that out. There we go. Let me gray out Christian McCaffrey because he is now officially gone. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised who my RB2 is. I'll tell you this: my RB2 is not Dalvin Cook.
I think you like Ezekiel Elliott. I'm going to say it right now.
I'm not going to tell you who I like. I'm going to tell you that you surprised.
I know you like Elliott. You won't say it because of the fact that you hate the Cowboys and you just die if you actually.
Look, let me say that we are splitting hairs. I can't say that word. We're splitting them. We're splitting them right now between the top 5 running backs. You know, you can almost make an argument because you have to. But I tend to think that there is not a wrong choice to make. We're going to find out later if, you know, one player obviously is going to be better than the other. There's going to be surprises. And again, injury aside, right? Because other than players that have clear issues with injuries, you don't necessarily want to fault people for taking a player that gets hurt. But it's tough right now to sit there and say, oh, there's a clear issue with any of these running backs. Now, PTT, his clock has run out. Garcia, are you aware of any conversations that were taking place?
I checked in with him and I haven't heard anything, so I'm assuming he is not paying attention.
We're going to give him a quick text, and you know, we can control for as much as we can control, friends. But you know, we can't do everything. But we're doing our best here, and we know that. So we're waiting here. We're going to give him a couple more seconds.
The good thing for him is auto pick selects Dalvin Cook, so I would think that's where he's going.
Yep.
Unless he's having a different conversation, I'm not included in it. Maybe he's got another buyer of sorts.
It's possible. Maybe he's in the middle of a conversation that we are not aware of. You know, I'll tell you.
Maybe he's trying to text you and then offer you.
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it come through. We're going to give it 30 more seconds or so. He was in the YouTube stream at one point. We have had. Okay. We have it, and the pick is in. And the pick is in with the second overall pick in the 2021 OTB draft. PTT has selected running back Derrick Henry. Running back Derrick Henry, perhaps the first interesting situation to get off the board. Garcia, your thoughts on Henry being the pick and not Dalvin Cook?
I guess if I keep playing up Dalvin Cook, I might get him at 12 the way this is going. So, you know, I guess that's. I mean, you're not going to go wrong with at least the top 4 guys. I would think Dalvin is better than Zeke and Derrick Henry. But, you know, hey, there's guys who just, if you love the player, you go with them. So in this case, PTT loved himself some Henry, and he's got himself, you know, a great running back. I just wonder if that workload he's had these last 2 years now, you know, is he going to be able to sustain that? The other thing, too, you got to keep in mind is Tennessee lost, you know, their offensive mind. Who's now over at Atlanta Falcons. So the transition of a new offense in terms of concept, is it going to stay the same? So, yeah, they obviously added another wideout, Julio Jones. Is, you know, that going to balance things out? Are they going to go more heavy pass and then run? We'll see. But, you know, not a bad pick, a surprising pick to say the least, considering Dalvin has been, you know, number 2 in most of the ADPs. So Henry's off the board. That means What? I don't know what that means, actually. What does that mean now?
Yes, PTT, if you can hear me, because I think I saw a comment, if you can do me a favor and enter it into the draft client now. Go into the app and pick him. You got about a minute to go on that draft app. Do me a favor and enter it. Regulators now on the clock. Regulators may be seeing a board that was a little different. Maybe they expected Cook to be gone. Cook is not gone. Henry is gone. So we have C-Mac 1 and Cook 2, and Henry 2. Even I'm still having trouble saying it. Remember, too, that, as you probably noticed, there is no draft board on the screen this year. So if you want to know who's being picked, go into your draft client and look at the players that are being picked, etc. Because we're not updating it here, even though we do put the graphic up when it actually happens. 30 seconds to go. And what I think I may end up doing is I think the idea of pausing the draft and unpausing the draft is actually a really bad idea. I thought it was going to be a good idea. I think PTT, he did. He just put it in. Okay, we're going to try it one more time next time. Thank you, PTT. I thought it was going to be easy, but it might be complicated for you guys that are toggling between screens to be like, wait, what am I doing when? Learning experience perhaps for next year. I thought it was going to have us going quicker. But anyway, the good news, Garcia, and I'm sure you're excited about this, we didn't really get a chance to talk much about Regulator's opportunity. He sprang to life. And the pick is in. So whatever he wanted, I am now checking. He was very, very excited about having it be there at 3. So we will go over to the commissioner to find out exactly what is happening. That's me. And with the 3rd overall pick in the 2021 OTB draft, Regulators has selected running back Dalvin Cook. So perhaps an opportunity for Regulators to get something that maybe he didn't expect to have there. Garcia, I mean, again, kind of a solid pick. Can't really go wrong with that. Were you surprised that he fell to 3?
I'm very surprised, and hey, Regulators landed himself a gold mine, so he's got to be delighted to be. He wasn't going to have a bad running back, but I think of the top 5, he's got the best one in the mix, at least in my opinion. Your opinion obviously is different because you're a big fan of Zeke Elliott, even though he's a Cowboy. So, Regulators, he's got to love where he's at right now with the first round.
Well, I'll tell you this, and so Regulators, if you can, do me a favor, go in and make the selection in the draft client. Appreciate that.
Hang on, because you're the commish. Don't you have the controls just to do that for us?
So believe it or not, I can do many things. I can take, after the draft, I can take all the teams away from you, or the players, that is, but I actually can't make picks for you. I can undo picks.
It is amazing. I mean, when you talk, you got to make a phone call.
I'm telling you, that would make my life a whole lot easier right now. And I'm starting to think that it might be easier for me to just keep the draft paused until the 2nd round. So I think if Regulators, and he just did. So if you're listening to me, I think I'm going to keep trying to do it, but I may decide that maybe. But just keep listening to me, and I'll tell you if I want you to put your pick in or not. We move on to Waverman, and now things get interesting. Now, yes, there are still players left that are, rather expected in this area. But I would argue that this is really the first one that there is some nuance to. Everybody had those 3 running backs in some order, 1, 2, 3 on their boards. I did not, actually. If you're interested, I had Dalvin was my RB3, which I'm starring him out. Henry was my RB5 this year, actually. So my RB2 has still not been selected. But that said, the first 3 picks are fairly expected. Garcia, Waverman is a team that has historically been on both sides. They've been a heavy receiver team. But usually when they're in this area of the draft, they've gone and got that elite running back that you can't get after the first 5 picks or so. So any predictions on where they may go here at 4?
I think he's got to go with Zeke. You're no.
Oh, I lost you for a sec. You said Zeke.
You talked, behind the panels. What's that?
I lost you for a sec. Did you say Zeke?
Yeah, I think he's going Zeke. I know you've got him as one of your top 2. So, Waverman's going to listen to anybody because he'll listen to you.
Well, wouldn't you know, we are moving right along, and you know what? The pick is in. This is a big one. This is a big one. This is one that I think could go a lot of different directions and really kind of bifurcate the draft board in a lot of different places. With the 4th overall pick in the 2021 OTB draft, Waverman, in a pick from All Aboard the Baby Bus, remember, has selected running back Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara off the board at 4. Waverman, if you're listening, if you could do me a favor, go into the draft client and make that pick for me. Thank you very much. And Garcia, any surprises there on Kamara, not Zeke, at 4?
I mean, it's funny. We went from Dalvin to Alvin, so that's kind of cool. Again, I still just wonder what the offense is going to be like now that Breeze is gone, and if that has an impact. It may in the beginning, but things may settle. I just hope Waverman's not regretting the fact that Zeke Elliott was there for him for the taking, and goes this route. So, interesting that he'd move up the way he did. I guess he had Alvin Kamara on his radar, for the longest time. So good for Waverman to make that move. It's a bold one. And I'm back. Why did he go black? I have no idea.
I'm here.
Good to see you're paying attention to him. You know what? Let me just, while you talk, I'll just text too. So go ahead.
Well, here's what I am doing. Behind the scenes, I am making sure WB, who is now on the clock, WB is still working, actually. That was the challenge. But he is in the draft room, and I'm trying to figure out if he just wants to make the pick without the fanfare of the commish reading it, which is totally fine, or if he does want to text it to me first and then go on from there. But again, Alvin Kamara off the board at 4. He was actually my RB4, so that's cool. And, again, I mean, I think we talked about this earlier, Garcia. I mean, you could kind of parse and parcel where you expected some of these guys to go. But the expectation was that these were the first 4-ish guys. There was some conversation about Zeke. But for the most part, people usually had those 4 guys kind of head and shoulders above the rest. I think when Jameis Winston won that job, I think that also helped kind of make people feel better. Taysom Hill's probably going to be involved somehow, and he might be, vulturing a touchdown for here and there. But I would think that Alvin's still going to retain a ton of value with Jameis as the quarterback. You would expect the passing game to be better, honestly, than it would have been with Taysom. And obviously, there's some conversation about what that backfield will look like. I think Kamara obviously is still head and shoulders above the rest. So we haven't heard from WB yet. He's got about a minute to go on this particular draft board. I am going to shift into seeing if he is available or not. As I do that, Garcia, so now here we are, 4 running backs in. There is still some very good running backs on the table. Of course, there's receivers and a tight end of interest, too. Anything you think, the prediction, why don't you factor in the fact that he's currently at work trying to do this? So what do you think Wristbands is going to be doing at 5?
Wait, he's at work doing this?
He thought the draft started at 8. It happens. It's part, this is what happens. Live television, though, we do our best with it. Hang on. He is okay. So he is in pick. So here's what I'm going to do, WB. Hang on one sec. Speak for like 30 seconds because things are happening.
Speak for 30. Well, if I'm in Wristband shoes, I'm going with Zeke Elliott. But being that I'm not, and knowing the way he works, I say the first receiver goes off the board here, and that is Tyreek Hill. That's my prediction on this one.
Well, as you were saying that, wouldn't you know that the pick is in and you're able to text it to me. Thank you, WB. He's doing many different things, and I will have you put it into the draft momentarily. But let's go to the commissioner with the selection. Commissioner is going to read it here. And with the 5th overall pick in the 2021 OTB Draft, Wristbands has selected tight end Travis Kelce, 5 overall to Wristbands. Garcia, your thoughts?
Listen, if there was one guy who was going to do it, it was going to be Wristbands. So if you love a guy, then you go with him. I guess in this case, he loved him. He loved himself some Kelce. So, yeah, he's right up there with Devontae, and obviously, NFL had him, probably higher than Devontae and Tyreek. I did it, but, again, the one who is a big fan of tight ends being Chris, it shouldn't surprise us at all.
Did I unpause it? Yeah, I unpaused it. Did he make the pick? Yeah, he made the pick. Hang on. I'm telling you, this draft client is really annoying me. Yeah, Sweet Home Chicago is on the clock. Wow. So Sweet Home Chicago, We will get to Sweet Home Chicago. I am also updating.
Sweet Home Chicago now. I mean, if this guy, he's the luckiest man on earth.
Well, he's going to get, again, I don't know what he wants. Maybe he wants one of the receivers. But a running back has also fallen into his lap if that's what he wants, because there was not a lot of mocks that probably had some of the running backs on the board right now in his lap. I don't know what he wants, but he has a decent, solid opportunity to make one of the picks that he wants. Let's talk about Travis Kelce for a second.
Let's just. Where did you have Kelce ranked in the top 15?
Kelce was
in the top 12. Top 12.
Kelce was my tight end 1. Kelce was overall for me. He was overall 15. He was overall 15. Here's the case for Travis Kelce, though. Here's the case for Travis Kelce. If he can do what he did last year, if he can be 100 points away from the next tight end on the board, if he can put up wide receiver 3-ish numbers overall, which is what he did last year, if you believe that, or if you believe he's got a higher ceiling, that is an absolute stud of a 5th overall pick. That is a pick that will make you, different from your peers, the only lock and load tight end arguably in the entire draft. And you now have that slotted in, and maybe the guy with the safest floor of everybody in the first round. That's my case for Travis Kelce. I'm not saying I buy the case. I'm saying that's the case for why people have him. There are very smart people that have Travis Kelce in their top 5 in the fantasy community. And again, I don't agree, but it's not crazy. People have said this. I'm just not one of those people. I had him at 15 overall.
Do we have your graph that we could show, the chart where you showed what NFL Fantasy had as the top 12 players? And I just want to see if that's what we're following currently in terms of the order here.
I don't have it. I can bring it up, but believe it or not, in fact, without even really getting a chance to talk much, Sweet Home Chicago pick is in. Garcia, any prediction here on where he went? Well, let's find out together. And with the 6th overall pick in the 2021 OTB Draft, Sweet Home Chicago has gone running back Ezekiel Elliott. So again, an opportunity perhaps fell in his lap, perhaps you could argue, just a bit. He gets Zeke at 6. Garcia, it's what you said, and it was true. I got to do a couple of updates here, but 15 seconds or so, what do you think?
Wow. Falling in his lap is an understatement. You got yourself a top 4 running back in the 6th slot of the first round, so you're off to a great start in your draft. No pressure on to Ian where he can screw this up, but even if he screws it up, he's got himself a bona fide stud, running that ball. And I know there's a lot of question marks with the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, and I just think that offense is going to be so potent. And, much like how I felt Dalvin Cook with the Minnesota Vikings, he's going to be the spark plug. The same with the Dallas Cowboys. So, last year I think it was an admiration of what Zeke is capable of doing in terms of the fact that what he went through. I think there were just so many things going on with that team. And I think McCarthy now in his 2nd year running the helm there has a little bit better control. And I think that those wideouts, I expect big years that not only CC with the pundits say, but I think Amari Cooper is going to show his worth with that contract. So, all good for Ian. A great start. That's one that I didn't see happening. I didn't think Zeke would fall that low. So
I was very, very high on Zeke this year. And so if you're like, well, who's your RB2? It was Zeke, which is funny because I would never pick him, as you know, with my whole NFC East thing. But I do also think Dallas is going to be very offensively good this year. I don't really know for sure if they'll actually be good other than their normal 8-9 or 9-8 selves. But I think if Dak is healthy, I think there's some stuff that happened with Zeke last year that was weird, and it won't happen again. Fantastic. Fantastic value pick. You can argue it one way or the other, but to get Zeke at 6, to me, thus far, is the highlight for the first round. And again, I'm not trying to put the kibosh on the guy, but Sweet Home Chicago, who has already had a couple of really good drafts, could not be happier, I would think, to start off the 3rd draft in this line of great drafts with Zeke at 6. Cincinnati on the clock. 6 running backs. 6 running backs to go. Do you think we'll see a receiver here, Garcia? Do you think we'll see running back?
I say the first real receiver goes on this one. So, we can consider Kelce receiver, though. He plays the tight end position. And I still think Hill should be getting the call soon. And one has to believe Cincinnati might be dialing him up to let him know.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's so hard to see with this board. I I think everything worked out well. Yep, he went Zeke at 6. And now, of course, everything is all messed up here. I'm trying to pause my draft, but of course it's not working. Or maybe it is. Okay. Problems are abounding here, but we're doing our best to... hang on one sec, guys. We're doing a lot here. Maybe my computer has decided this is too much for you to be able to do. So I'm actually going to exit the draft, and hopefully I can get back in time before any issues come up. Cincinnati, by the way, his pick was in, and he went... well, hang on. I'll put it up on the screen for those that didn't see. He went Aaron Jones. Running back, Aaron Jones for Cincinnati at 6. I'm going to do my best to get into the draft board here and restart things for me because I'm having a little issue with the draft client as well as this Wi-Fi heavy live stream. So don't worry, I can probably, if it goes to Greatest Show on Paper, do not pick if you don't mind because I can undo that pick. Okay, looks like I can pause it here. Wow. Okay, so unfortunately didn't do the fanfare there with the 7th overall pick. It was Aaron Jones, another running back off the board. Sidebar is now on the clock, and Garcia, as I think about it for 3 minutes-ish, what will you do? I'm sorry, let me ask it this way. What do you think the Sidebar franchise will do?
Well, one thing about Aaron Jones, solid pick. I did not have him in my top 12. I didn't give you a first rounder. But nonetheless, he's the top guy there in the backfield for the Packers. And again, another potent offense. Surprised that he actually went back to the Packers with that extension. And so, again, I thought Devontae, Tyreek Hill, those two names have been called. I'm just waiting for Tyreek Hill to be called. And one has to think maybe it's you who's going to make that number. But, there's another guy out there, Najee Harris, who, I've fallen in love with and I've fallen out of love with. And I know you may have similar feelings the way we look at running backs, but you're on the clock, as they say.
Indeed I am. I don't think I had the camera on you for that soliloquy. I apologize. I was so busy looking at the draft board. But the good news for you is you don't have to pontificate any longer because the pick is in. And with the 8th overall pick in the 2021 OTB draft, Sidebar has selected wide receiver Davante Adams. Davante Adams, the first receiver taken off the board. Garcia, your thoughts?
I guess you're playing it safe. You're just playing it safe. I don't think you love it. I don't sense this is not one of your Dave J. Giardino moments. I think you just kind of went the norm here. So we'll see what happens in these later rounds. I think you're holding back. I think you feel the sting from last year and the way you went, and even the year before that. Everyone's waiting for that stupendous move of yours. So maybe we'll wait until the 7th or 8th round. But hey, nothing bad. I can speak to the fact that having Davante is a great asset on your team. And if you look at my numbers last year, Davante, literally carried the team on his back until he could no longer do it when he was injured. And as long as he stays healthy, you've got yourself, a 1A, 1B receiver. So we'll be interested to see the strategy you take after this. I'm curious to know, what your game plan is moving forward. So Barkley gets passed by you. That's got to sting. That's got to hurt.
I think that a lot of different ways you could go. I see a lot of value in that in the area. A lot of running backs are going to be off the board. It's a risk, right? Because I just said it at the beginning of the break. I mean, the running back position is scarce, and the elite running back position is even scarcer. So to go receiver, it is definitely a risk in that will you get a guy you can depend on, or one, not even two. Can you get a guy that you can depend on? Greatest show on paper on the clock, and believe it or not, before we can even go any further, Garcia, the pick. So we're still moving. So Commissioner here is going to read the pick. And with the 9th overall pick in the 2021 OTB Draft, the defending champions, greatest show on paper, in a pick from Sanchez and Butthead, have gone running back Nick Chubb. Running back Nick Chubb, they're trying to go back to their roots, their championship roots. They had Chubb last year. They will get Chubb again this year. Perhaps this was the player they were hopeful to get jumping up at 9. Garcia, your thoughts? And by the way, as he's talking, guys, I'm going to unpause the draft for you to get Nick Chubb in.
Chubb was a solid pick. Again, though, you and I have had the discussion about it offline. Does you get concerned about Kareem Hunt still there, splitting time with him? So, but Chubb's the real deal. So, number 9, a little surprised. I thought he was going to go a different way. And when I mean he, I mean the decision maker. But obviously, the two-headed monster discussed it, and maybe it was a coin flip. Maybe they had another guy in mind. So we'll see. When the 30 for 30 comes out in terms of the greatness of the greatest show on paper. Who really makes these decisions in moments like this? How it came down to Nick Chubb. I'm curious. Maybe I'll get a text message, early in the morning tomorrow or a week from now, and it'll tell me the real story. But that offense is solid as well. So a lot going for the Browns in terms of the organization making the playoffs last year. They got to look and build on. So I guess Tyree.
Yeah, no, it's true. Receivers keep dropping, and overall, and so Nick Chubb is. I'm not gonna contend or criticize Nick Chubb at all. RB8, I think I have right here in the rankings, and blue chip guy who people don't realize that he would have been a lot higher had he not had a few weeks that he missed. Even splitting time with Kareem Hunt last year, he was adjusted for games played easily in the top 10. Might even been in the top 7 adjusted for games played. So if he continues, stays healthy, and they continue to be run first, I think the only thing you get concerned now with Nick Chubb, I was actually just talking about this with Greatest Show on Paper the other day, one is that both running backs were remarkably efficient with their touches last year. They were among the most efficient from a touchdown perspective of any running back with that level of touches because they don't have as many because they split the committee there. So that's your first issue. And your second issue is Odell Beckham. That team looks so much better without him. With him coming back, will they still be run first? Will they try to force it to him? Will they still be a run first offense? They do so well running the ball. Hopefully all that's true. If all that holds up, Nick Chubb could easily well exceed the draft position of which he was drafted at pick number 9. All aboard the baby bus now, on the clock, in a pick that they received from Waiverman at 10. I think everybody's interested what all aboard the baby bus will want to do with this pick. They clearly didn't love where they were at 4. I don't know if it's that they loved it where they would be at 15 more, but here they sit at 10 with the opportunity and a wide open board, I'd argue. I mean, obviously there are only maybe a few running backs of like elite caliber left, you could argue. Obviously that won't be true 3 or 4 months from now. We can replay this video and laugh at all the running backs that I didn't have ranked high. But at least what you would expect. There's a few left, so there's an opportunity there, but there's also receivers. Obviously, the one tight end we expected to go early is off the board. And from this, what will he do? Well, I'll tell you this. The pick is in. The pick is in. And with the 10th overall pick in the 2021 OTB Draft, all aboard the baby bus, has running back Austin Eckler, a name that had been climbing up those boards. Remember, there were 6, I think, in the NFL client that we're in. This is now all aboard the baby bus's selection. Garcia, your thoughts on an interesting selection in my mind?
Truth be told, Dave, I did not hear the selection because you froze when you were about to say it.
It was Austin Eckler. It was Austin Eckler, guys. If I all froze, it was Austin Eckler, a guy who's been searched on the boards.
I see a lot of the upside. I understand why people are so excited about Austin Eckler. Again, I know 2 things that stood out to me when it came to looking at Austin Eckler. One, how long is he going to be able to stay on the field because he has a tendency to get hurt? No fault of his. I think 1 year he had a broken leg, but that's the name of the game. Seems like he's been hampered by injuries. And the other thing, too, that I get concerned about is they had an offensive system that seemed to be clicking really well. Justin Herbert obviously is the right selection at quarterback. I know they brought in the offensive guy for the Saints to kind of run it there, but how long is it going to take for those guys to really blend? So those were things that concerned me, but the guy can run, he can catch out of the backfield, solid pick. If you love a guy, you go with him. So a little bit higher than I thought he would be, but good for Frankie, man. He's got himself a dual threat there, both in the ground game and passing.
And I will say, all aboard the Baby Bus, if you want to jump in and make that. Oh, he just did. Pick is in. He made it. So thank you for that. And now Shipwreck on the clock. And you're right. So I don't have Eckler as high personally. I think there are some concerns. You noted a few of them. But if there's one guy that I like, you're like, hey, who do you expect to be way wrong on based on where you have him? Because I have him. I won't even tell you what my RB rank is for Austin Eckler because you'll laugh at me. If there's one guy that you're like, who do you expect to be the most wrong about, it's probably Austin Eckler. Because if you believe the Chargers offense is going to explode this year, and if you think Eckler is going to be the Kamara, as he says he will be, in that offense, then it's a no-brain slam dunk pick at 10 because he can easily exceed that. He's got the PPR value. My concern with him is can he last 17 games? Where will he be in that committee in the most important touches, and that's goal line touches? He had one rushing touchdown last year. I think he had a couple the year before. He has not historically been used that way. Maybe he will be. They've got some bigger bruiser backs back there, though, that I'm curious what they'll do with those guys. But again, I have a feeling Frankie will play. I'm feeling Frankie will replay this part where I doubted in about 4 or 5 months and say, hey, all the things you thought about Austin Eckler did not turn out to be true. That's what I think.
I think his draft will be made in the second round. I guarantee that.
Well, and so Ship's on the clock. Lot to unpack there. Let's talk about the board. I'm looking at it over here. This is not necessarily in the order that they went, but C-Mac, Zeke, Cook, Kamara, Jones, Henry, Adams, Chubb, Kelsey. Eckler. Sorry, Eckler. So again, all but 2 of those positions are running backs. The tight end, Travis Kelsey, and then Devontae Adams. I mean, it's kind of what we expected. The not necessarily the players, but the order or the positional order that we expected has kind of ended up being true. So nothing really surprising there, right, Garcia?
True. Zeke falling the way he has fallen surprised me. Again, you can go any which way in the first 3. Really, I don't think you'd have been wrong. Aaron Jones going in the first round, a little surprising to me because I had him more in the second round, second tier of running backs. But a lot of big names still left. Barkley, Taylor, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. A lot to choose from for Shipwreck. So I'd be interested to know if he's going to take the route of staying the course and kind of going running back, or if he's going to pick one of those last remaining top 5 receivers or top 3 receivers.
Wouldn't you know, by the way, that the pick is in for Ship. And with the 11th overall pick in the 2021 OTB Draft, Shipwreck has selected running back Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Perhaps the first slight surprise. Depends where you had him on your board. A lot of people did have him in this range. But probably this is on the earlier end if you were to look at it like from an aggregate perspective. Ship, I'm going to unpause the draft for you now. Garcia, you are on the clock, so I will not ask you your decision. You've got things to do now, so I'm not going to ask you your opinion. But I will say this. We'll say that it is an interesting pick, a surprising pick, perhaps some would say. Surprising in the sense that he also picked a high upside guy last year in Clyde that didn't work out. So I think there was some questions from some people that there's the other high upside guy. Will he go him, or will he be kind of, cautious because of what happened last year with another guy that everybody loved? Najee Harris, I mean, you can't say enough good things about him. I don't know the exact stat. If you know it on YouTube, please throw it up there. Of running backs that have had at least 300 touches in a season, I feel like there's been one in the history of fantasy football that hasn't finished in the top 12 or 15 or 10 or something. Just by usage alone, he is going to be fine. The question, and whether he will truly return higher upside than RB9 or 10, is the offensive line in Pittsburgh, the mouths to feed. They don't seem like a run-first team. Maybe they will be if they have Najee. You would argue that the catching out of the backfield is going to be able to fix some of that, but they throw so much inside the 10-yard line. You also say, well, hopefully they run a little more this year. I love the pick in that it is a high upside pick, and you know how I feel. I love high upside picks. But I do think that those are the questions. The upside's there. If he stays healthy with that usage, it should be fine. Can it exceed fine? Can it be top 5? Will we be talking about Najee in the top 5 next year? That is indeed the question. But Garcia now on the clock, and obviously I will pontificate while he makes his choices. So to recap, this is the last pick we'll go before we go fully online. To recap, we have had 9 running backs go in the first 11 picks. Only one receiver.
Hang on.
Only one tight end. Did you?
You somehow selected Jonathan Taylor for me. It's weird.
That might have been an auto. Oops, hang on. Don't worry. We can fix that, I think. Hang on. We're going to get there. Hopefully it doesn't go to the next guy, because I think I have trouble removing 2. Hopefully I don't, though. Let's find out. We'll find out together. We're getting there. Live television, and I'm glad that we only did the first round offline this time.
I don't remember having this much trouble last year.
All right, I'm undoing the last pick. Okay, I think we're good. I'm going to look at the draft board just to make sure. Yes, we are good. And I'm going to read your pick. Right. I think you sent me. Indeed, you did.
I sent it to you. Yes. Hopefully I spelt it right.
And with the 12th overall pick in the OTB 2021 draft, Sanchez and Butthead, a.k.a. the league nemesis, is going to select wide receiver Tyreek Hill off the board. I love the pick. It was actually a toss-up between Hill and Adams for me. Part of me really liked the idea of going Hill at 8, but I ended up going with Adams, and so I like this dichotomy here for the rest of the draft. So I'm going to resume the draft here, Garcia. I'm going to have you pick it. Then I think I'm going to try to pause it again, which is probably dumb, but I'm going to try. Did you make the pick yet?
Let me get in there. Hang on. It says I'm 1 pick away.
There you go. It's just resume now. Tell me what you think.
I'm doing it.
He's doing it. And so
there it goes.
So I'm going to unpause draft one more time. So from here on out, we are fully online. I'm going to give you guys about a 2-minute break. And when I say you guys, I kind of mean me. But you will see that the draft board will just start. Garcia, I believe, is next up. And from here on out, it's fully online, 2 minutes per pick. If there are any issues, please text me. However, the rest of the draft you can do online. Like I said, if you're able to keep the live stream up, please do. We will pop in from time to time with our comments. Thank you to everybody that has made this offline portion of the draft as awesome as it was, as awesome as it could be. Like I said, about 2 minutes away, we're going to unpause the draft. We will see you soon. Don't go anywhere if you can. Stay on the live stream. Okay, we're back for those that are seeing me here. So one of the things that I have learned since doing this live stream concurrently on the same computer with my draft board is that it is not working. The lag is impossible. So here's what we're going to do, unfortunately. We are going to break this live stream. Unfortunately, I have no choice. I don't want to slow the draft down. I'm going to be breaking it. We will come back later in the evening when things are a little less crazy. I will send you a link. Keep your eye on the email, and I will send you a link to the new live opportunity where Garcia and I will talk a little bit about the draft. But for the time being, just to keep things moving, I'm going to pause this or end this. We'll be back. Appreciate you guys. I will send a new link when we are back live again.